My name is Denise Motlu. I head up the team here at PLTW Assessment Team. I'm joined by my esteemed colleagues, Brian 𝐲𝐸, and today we'll go over several different points about how to get ready for the EOCs, some of the new features on the experience, and then also you on terms of how to prepare your students, especially using the informative assessment tool. Do a lot of the talking, so I'll let my colleagues take over in momentarily. But before we begin, let us go through the agenda and just some housekeeping rules. Please feel free. We have a chat box open here. The three of us, Terry, Brian, and myself, will do our best to answer any questions that may pop up, but also feel free towards the end of the webinar to ask any questions that anyone has would like to ask. We'll do our best to answer them in a timely manner. And if anyone has any other questions that we're not able to answer due to time, we'll be glad to schedule an additional time for you all to answer those questions. So for our agenda, we're going to start off with talking about accessibility and accommodations, requesting paper forms, alternative Braille and paper forms. We're going to talk about understanding the blueprints that are indicated and located in the admin manual. What is it? What's assessed? These are critical blueprints that outlined the content and the percentage of skills and content that will be measured on the EOCs is sort of a roadmap for teachers and for students. And coming testing issues that we've come across through several channels, and we'll talk about how to best avoid them. We'll also talk a little about the use of the EOC results and how we've used them and interpretation of them that will be useful for you. And then finalizing that with our walkthrough of our informative assessment tool. With that, I will hand it over to my colleague.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be with you today. The first thing we thought we'd talk about was accommodated test forms and making sure that everybody knows how to order them. Brian, you want to flip to the next slide? So the very first thing to do if you need a paper pencil form or a Braille form is to send us an email to the address you see on screen, and that kind of kicks off the process. When we process that, we'll send you a DocuSign form that'll come in your email. We'll let you know that it's coming. And that's our electronic tracking mechanism. One of the big values in using that form is that it protects student data. So you're going to put like the student's name in here and your shipping address and things like that. And we don't like to send that through email. So if you use the DocuSign, it will protect it. The test will come to you about a week before your test is scheduled to happen. You'll tell us what your anticipated test date is. And then you will enter the student responses. Once the student has taken the test, you're responsible at the school for entering the responses on the form and into 𝐭𝐡𝐢. And then you'll send the forms back, and it'll be scored in about a week after we get all the secure materials back at the University of Kansas. Now, if you have any questions on any of that, you'll see our email address several times throughout this, pltwassessment@pltw.org, and we'll do our very best to stay on top of those. So don't hesitate to send us any questions you have. Brian, let's talk about the test blueprints a little bit. What I really want to talk about is how the test blueprint aligns with everything else that's going on. We start with the course framework. So the course framework is a document that you have available within your curriculum, and it lists the objectives, and you see the little check boxes that tell you where this objective is addressed in the curriculum. So we start with that course framework. We have our vendor, actually, our testing vendor, CAE, Council for Aid to Education, starts with the framework, talking with our curriculum developers, and develops a test blueprint that lists the skill clusters, the frameworks covered in each skill cluster, and then the weight of the test that will be in that area. So people ask us, well, what should I spend the most time on? This would be a guideline for you of which things are more relevant to us in the test blueprint. Some things we just have a real hard time measuring in an online test. Things like collaboration. How do you measure collaboration in an online test? So it's not that it's not important, but it won't be covered on the test. And so you would see that being kind of low because it's not something we cover a lot. So we start with the course framework, we go to the test blueprint, and that aligns directly, Brian, next slide, with the score report. So the skill clusters that you see on the score report, I just have 2 of them listed in this little excerpt that I have here. Those are just a way that we have grouped objectives to make it easier for you to see where your students are doing really well and where they might be challenged. It is not directly tied to the scale score. The subscore will tell you which areas your students are doing well in, where they might need to improve. But the scale score, which is up here where you see novice 150 in the green box, the scale score is actually the score you should be looking at for the student. That tells you across the whole test how the student performed. The little box there will be over whichever one of the achievement level descriptors is represented: novice, practiced, accomplished, or distinguished. Notice that there is no fail on this test. People are sometimes nervous about, well, what if my students don't do well on it? Your students can't do any worse than being identified as still novice in the area. And that the number of people that score in that is pretty low. Practiced, we sort of expect students to be able to get to the practiced. A remarkable number of them get to accomplished, and distinguished is a very small percentage of students. That really is a higher order of thinking. You won't see that very often. And if you do, congratulations. Next one, Brian. So one of the things that we want to make sure everybody's aware of, we have 5 new test blueprints this year. That means our subject matter experts have worked together looking at the objectives and created a new test blueprint with new weights on it, new skill clusters, and these 5 new blueprints are in PBS, HBS, IED, POE, and EES. We've added new items kind of throughout the test. We have a lot of new items added this year, and I think that's it. Brian, next one. You'll hear me frequently put in a plug for the end of course assessment manual. This manual has our operations, how to do it. It has policies listed. It also lists test blueprints for each course and sample score reports for each course. Those are in a table at the end that you can link from any of those. So anytime you have a question, I would suggest this is the best place to start. If you don't find the answer there, remember that our Solution Center team is available 24/7. These guys are great and really nice. If you have questions and you need it answered right now, call or email our Solution Center team. That's the very best way, very fastest way to get a question answered. If you want to send us an email, we are happy to get it, but we are not 24/7 in our email address. The Solution Center is. So I'd encourage you to download the administration manual. Remember that there are occasionally throughout the year updates to this manual. And so if you have one that you printed 2 years ago, you should download a new one. And there's the link, there's a QR code. And of course, if you can't find it anyplace else, you call our Solution Center. Okay, let's talk about a few common mistakes that we've heard about more than once, and how we think you might avoid them. Right? One of the things that is really a problem is when you have a student ready to take a test and there's no test there for them. Now, thankfully, this doesn't happen very often. When you have uploaded your rosters and your student has filled out the couple more things on the student profile that they need to, things like gender and maybe date of birth. Once that's done, that roster is automatically sent to the University of Kansas, and they automatically send back an authorization to test. It's a really good idea to check that a couple days before you're ready to give the test to make sure that your students have their authorization to test. Sometimes I'll call that an ATT. And the easy way to do it is to go into your My PLTW account, and on the very first page in the testing area, you'll see you can select your class. And if there's a check mark beside the student, that means you're set. They've got it. They're ready to test. If there's an X, that means that something is missing. Now, if something is missing, there's two ways you can fix that. You can ask the student to go in and update their profile, or if you only have one or two that have that X instead of the check mark, you might want to go in and just update their profile. Notice that for gender, race, and ethnicity, there's also an option to choose not to reply. And that's okay with us. We would like to have that information because it helps us make sure that the test is fair for all of the subgroups that might test. But if the student or you are uncomfortable with sharing that, you have that option in those categories to just say, I would rather not reply. But something has to be selected in that category before we'll send the roster over and before a student will get an authorization to test back. If you find that entering that stuff in the profile doesn't fix it, call the Solution Center. Sometimes, I say automated, but you know how it is. Sometimes you need to go kind of kick the server, and our Solution Center team can take care of that for you. But it isn't instant. It's fast, but it's not instant. So if you check this report a few days before you're going to test, give them a call. They can fix it for you. Okay. I think everybody will have this done already, but you do need the student portal, an updated student portal installed. 𝐞𝐲 version 31 is the portal we're using this year, and we update these about every other year. They're updated to protect the student information and also to protect the network in your school. So you want this secure browser in there, and it's important that it's the right version. If it's not, it won't run. The test won't start. So if you go to start a test and it doesn't start, the two things that we've heard that may cause that, it's possible that you've sent the students to the non-secure browser, which you could use for the IAT or the informative quizzes, but it won't work for the EOC. Or you might have the wrong version of 𝐞𝐲 installed. Usually the district tech person will handle this for you. And if you just send them to the link here, pltw.org, plan for PLTW and software, we have instructions, detailed instructions for all 4 types of devices that students can test on. So, student readiness. One of the things we want you to make sure, we hear from time to time, the student was surprised by the navigation, or the student didn't know how to use the tools. And the best way to get them ready to do that is to put them in an informative assessment quiz before the test experience, so they can kind of try it out, feel it, see how you use the magnification if they want to use that. See how you find the engineering formula sheet in the library section. A new thing this year is the Java Quick Reference. That is for our computer science courses, and I think they've used it throughout the course, so they'll be familiar with it. But now they can get it on screen if they want, so you don't have to print them out ahead of time. And I understand that's a pretty important thing for the computer science pathway. The engineering formula sheet, a quick comment about that. It's a really good idea to let them practice with that formula sheet before they hit the EOC. It has a lot of formulas on it, and we don't want finding the formula to be the thing that causes them additional angst. So let them practice with the formula sheet. And if it's available in the curriculum, but all of these are available in the admin manual through a linked download. Next one. So this is a sample screen for, I think this is for an IAT screen, but this is what kite looks like when your students see it. Well, not the blurriness, because we made that because it's a live question. But a couple things that you might want to point out to them. Sometimes students are confused by this line right here in the middle. That line can slide to the left or the right, and it just adjusts the real estate on the screen for that particular question. So maybe they don't even want to see the scenario. They just want to see the options that are available. They're trying to think through which answer am I going to use. They might want to completely hide the passage, which is the part on the left. This also lets them practice with the tools. There's an on-screen calculator. There's a strikeout tool. There's a highlight tool. All of these are things that students might want to use, and they shouldn't find them the first time when they go to the EOC. So we suggest that you give it a try. We like the IAT test, but find some way to let the students know what it's going to be like. Next one, Brian. Sometimes you get to test day, and all of a sudden the student doesn't remember their username or password. Now the username is probably the same username that they have used to get into the curriculum all year. The password, however, will be different. It is a kite-specific password. If they've been using the IAT, they've been using this password, but even if they use it, sometimes they forget. So it's probably a good idea for you to go in and download these ahead of time. There's two ways that you can get them. You can either do a print a PDF, which will look like what's on the screen right here. You can cut those apart and hand them to the students. Here's yours, here's yours. Be really careful when you do that, because there is the risk when you do that you could hand Joe Jenny's login. And we want Joe to take Joe's test, not Jenny's test. Some teachers just prefer to download it as a CSV file. You can do that too. And if you have any questions about how to do it, there's instructions in the admin manual, or, of course, I will always remind you, you can call our Solution Center if you need to. Next one, Brian. Daily access codes. This is a security measure. In addition to the username and password, the student will have to enter their daily access code to start the test. As daily would suggest, this code changes every day. So you can go online anytime after 3:30 in your time zone, the day before your test, and download tomorrow's access codes. Something else to remember, you can download the access code for both Section 1 and Section 2 of the test. If you do that, be really careful not to give your student both of those access codes unless you expect them to open both sections of the test. Now you probably already know this, but a student needs to finish Section 1, which is about 25 questions, before they can start Section 2. They need to finish it and submit it, and then they'll have access to Section 2, but they still have to have the access code. So if you're giving both sections in the same day, you'll want to have both access codes there. If you're not planning on them taking both sections, if you only have like 1 hour for them to take it, don't give them that second access code. Don't let them accidentally start that test, because once they've started it, the test is exposed. So be careful with the access codes. Also, you'll notice that we're going to ask you to agree to the security agreement before you get the access code. This is kind of a just-in-time reminder. Things like you need to not record any of these items. Don't take a picture and send us a picture of an item. Don't let the students do that. Obviously, no cell phones. We'll talk more about that later. But when you agree to this, you'll have access to the access codes for the day, and then you can go ahead and put them up for your students. Next one, Brian. I think at this point, I'm going to turn it back to my friend, Dr. Jones, and ask him to talk to us a little bit more about score reports.
Okay, well, thank you, Terry. I'm just going to address a question in the Q&A. Terry might talk about this a little bit more later on, but I don't believe that we have a script to read before you start the test. However, we would want you to go over the acceptable behaviors and just use your best judgment. We didn't feel like we needed to have a word for word script um, that you read for the students. So Terry will jump on and correct me if I'm wrong, which sometimes happens.
You're right,
um,
Brian.
okay, good, good. I was going out on a ledge there. But all right, cool. Well, let's talk about the use and interpretation of the results. So I want to focus on two two types of use and interpretation. One from the perspective of the student and how they can get value from taking the EOC and using their results, but then also from a teacher and administrator perspective as well. So the first thing that I want to chat about is the ACE recommendation and acknowledgement of several of the EOC courses. So ACE is an organization that reviews curriculum and assessments, and they go through an evaluation process that is pretty robust. And at the conclusion of that, if they feel like the curriculum with the assessment meets the standards of a general university post-secondary education requirement, they will provide a recommendation for that. So where this is valuable for the students is that they can um, they can take this assessment result and they can demonstrate to them that this is like, so if they're in the cybersecurity, for example, course, they can take that to the university and they can petition if they don't already accept the EOC as credit or taking that PLTW course as credit. If there's not that established relationship, this ACE recommendation is just another third party uh, organization to vouch for the value that comes from participating in a whole year of a PLTW course and then taking the assessment. Um, the next thing here I want to mention is the transcripted university credit. So this is where a student could uh, present their completion of the course and their EOC results to one of our four partners here, and they can purchase their credit from that institution. And once they have that credit, then that's now something that's a university accredited, um, you know, units of instruction that they can transfer to other places. So that if they have a student has a particular post-secondary institution that doesn't directly accept the or have a mechanism to accept the PLTW EOC or the recognize the coursework there, that's one way that we found helpful for students to be able to get the recognition they deserve by going through and completing the course and participating in the EOC. We will be sending out, I think we might have mentioned this, but we will be sending out a copy of the slides. And that link, the PLTW Student Opportunities page, you could even just Google that. Um, and that has a list of lots of other opportunities that are there that we won't dive into right now, but scholarships and other things that students can take advantage of from completing the PLTW course and taking the EOC to demonstrate that they've learned the material there. So that's one of the great values, and we don't have it here, but one of the slides that I love to share when I would talk about this sometimes is the amount of money. Like if you convert credit hours to money, and then you convert it to how much time it takes to attend class and to study for those things, it really is quite surprising what those credits can do to benefit these students. Now, one of the other ways that we can help provide the benefit to the student is we have some partner organizations, and those partner organizations, we have an agreement that we share students' EOC results with the universities once they complete the EOC. Now, the main part here is that this first part that I have listed there is with legal consent. An EOC score is private educational data, and so we cannot share that without permission. And so if we get permission, whether that's from the student because they're 18 years or older and they can make that legal decision for themselves, or whether that permission comes from a parent or guardian, then they get enrolled in our score sharing program, which automatically will share all of their EOC scores with those partners. So that they don't have to like specify where it's going to go. It will go to all those partners. And I just wanted to touch on a few things here of the requirements for score sharing. So the way that it works now is that at the end of the EOC, so after they've completed the test and everything's done, it will ask them if they would like to share their scores. And if they are 18 years or older, they can put in their own personal email, and that will be used to send them a consent form to share their scores with our partners. Now, this is where you might want to give your students a heads up. If they are younger than 18, then what we ask them to do is to provide a parent or guardian email. And that allows us to send the consent form to the parent or guardian. They can then complete the form and give their permission to release their students' information to our partners. So that's one thing that if you want to make sure that your students get that opportunity, make sure if they're under 18, they need to have a parent's email. I'd hate for them to be able to get to that point and want to share, but not have an email to share. And then just a side note there is a way that you can do this from my PLTW afterward and not through the EOC. Definitely the EOC is the easiest and quickest and the way that most people do. I'll just echo the common thing that Terry was saying is if you get to that point and you get stuck trying to find how to do this in my PLTW, you can contact the Solution Center and they will be happy to help you out. All right, so we have two main types of information that come from the EOC. We have the ALDs, so our achievement level descriptors, and other tests call those performance levels. There's different words that you can use interchangeably here. We've chosen to use the achievement level descriptors, and then you have the scale score. And it's important to understand how both of those work so that you can make sure you're using the assessment results appropriately and interpreting them in a way that's beneficial to the student and is not misinterpreting their results. So I will talk I'll let you guys read this. I won't go through it, but we do have the different levels. Terry mentioned that before. And these are the descriptions of what a student would look like at each of these performance or achievement levels. And there's a process that we go through and get experts in the room. We look at the questions on the assessment and find that cut point of where what score a student would need to get to demonstrate some of these attributes or performance levels. So ALDs are great because they are consistent across all PLTW courses. So you can talk about how many students got distinguished or accomplished or practice, and you can communicate that, and that's going to be the same across all of the courses. Now, one of the things that not as many people are aware of is that those cut points for distinguished or accomplished, those actually shift depending on which course the student is taking and what test they're taking, because the content of that test is different and they're different combination of items. And so our panel of experts have set that cut point at a different place. So in a word of caution that like I have my example here, a 380 on MI doesn't necessarily mean that you have that a 380 in PBS is the same thing. And we have in the EOC assessment, understanding the EOC assessment results document, and we'll share a link to that. There is an appendix that shows the distribution of those scores over the years. And so you can see here, I wish I could zoom in it a little bit more, but the different shaded regions here are the groupings of the proficiency levels. And you can see how they're staggered a little bit. And that just highlights that the different scale scores aren't necessarily directly interpretable in the exact same way from course to course. Okay, so I could talk about this forever, but I'm going to keep going. Another thing that gets brought up when people talk about what's on the test and what they should expect, you should expect the items to be aligned to the course. And what that means is that students should be able to take what they've learned throughout the course, through all the activities and all of the things that they've participated in up to this point, and they should be able to synthesize and answer these questions. Extracted is not what this is. Extracted is, I give the example of my daughter who was taking an online course and she needed help with a problem. And so I got stuck too. I couldn't, I think it was a subject that I wasn't as familiar with. But all I did was I just copied the question and put it in the search in the digital textbook. And we found, and it was like the question was exactly word for word how it was extracted from the digital textbook. That is not what we do with the EOC. The EOC is designed to be something that is aligned and should be a place for them to apply what they've learned. And once they've taken the EOC, this is where, as a teacher or administrator, you can use that data as evidence to support the impact and the quality of your program that you have going on. There's one way to do this to get aggregate results. This is in what's the term? Just slips my mind. Educator portal, I think it is. And you'll just go into there, you click on EOC results, and then you can select your results icon and then go to the next one here. There is a place where you can select the year, and then that notification will pop up that you can download it. And when you do this, it will produce a spreadsheet that has several different columns with the assessment results for that year. So you can see here, the one that was the column M that's highlighted in this particular image just shows the scale score there. And then you can see the performance level, which is the general performance level, and then the skill cluster, you have your name and then the score. So this is one way that a teacher could take data and the results from the EOC and use that as evidence to support their program impact and how well the students are doing in that program. And so there's other ways that we can do that. And those are ways that I'd love to help you. If you ever need any additional data or reports, email us and I'll be happy to help you. We've had lots of reports similar to this where we give outlines of how well students have done from year to year, how well they've done compared to the national performance. We've even done comparison groups. And this information has been very useful for districts to, again, provide evidence to show the value of EOC, especially in their board meetings or district meetings when they're kind of having to go up and justify and ask to continue those programs. So that is all for me for now. So I will turn this back over to Terry, I believe.
Thank you, Brian. Yep. Brian's very modest about those reports that you just looked at, but I want to tell you that he really is here to help us. He's here to help you, and it's not an onerous project for him to create one of those reports. If your district would like to see that information, for example, sometimes we hear that districts don't want to have to download each individual course to see the aggregate report. Brian can run that for you and give you some interpretation on it. So don't hesitate to reach out to us if that's something that your district would find valuable. Okay, I'm going to show quickly how to use the informative assessment tool. I think most of you probably are pretty comfortable with this already, but we're going to just go through an outline of it. And if you have questions, of course, let us know. I do want to point out that there is a YouTube video on, it's only 5 minutes, and it's linked, you see the link there. You're welcome to use that, look at it as often as you want. Some people prefer a video because they can play it forward, play it back, watch a certain section over again. And like I said, it's only 5 minutes. It's not a complicated tool to use, but remember that you've got this YouTube video if you need it. Next one, Brian. Okay, so when you're ready to start creating your quiz, we call it creating. What you're really doing is curating it. You are going to select pre-designed blocks, put them together, and make a quiz out of it. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to select from, you're going to be in the educator portal, and you're going to select this middle tab that is interim. You're going to see a drop down when you do that, and you want to select build or copy a test. Next one, Brian. Once you do that, you want to find your course. It will only have the courses in here that you are qualified to teach and that you have a roster in. So if you try to create these in the summer before you've uploaded your rosters, you won't see anything dropping down here. It only becomes available after you've imported a roster, and then this drop-down box will show you any of the courses that you have a roster in and that you're qualified to teach, certified by PLTW to teach. So select your course, that's the next thing, and then you'll see a list of item blocks that are available for you to choose from. So in this example, if I were a human body systems teacher and I hit the search on that one, I would see birth complications, body systems, bone fracture, burn accident, this whole list. And actually the list goes on beyond that. And many of our courses actually have unit quizzes. So there might be a Unit 1 quiz, a Unit 2 quiz, a Unit 3 quiz, and a Unit 4 quiz. Not all of them, but many of them do. So once you've selected the blocks, you probably want to know what objectives are being tested in that block. If you hit Content Assessed, the button that's in the lower left-hand corner, it will bring up the framework's tested list, and it'll tell you what that block is designed to measure. Or if you picked several blocks, it'll list all of the objectives that are covered in all the blocks you've selected. Once you've checked Content Assessed, next one, Brian, you probably want to look at the items. Now, you don't have to do this, but most teachers want to know what the items are like before they give them to the students. And so all you have to do to look at the items is click Preview. When you click Preview, it will bring it up and show it to you just the way it looks on the student's screen. So you can see the passage on the left, the item on the right, and you'll notice that this one has a green check mark by 0.70, moderate obstruction. That's the right answer. If you don't want the right answer to show when you're looking at it, and the reason you might not is because some teachers use this and they just put it up on screen and they project it and they want the students to talk about it together, or they may talk about it to them, you know. So if you don't want the right answer to show, scroll up to the top of the screen and there's a little mark that says don't display responses, and then it will take that away. So there's the check mark that shows you, but you don't have to use it. Okay, so then you're going to put a check mark by any of the blocks that you want to include. Something that might be relevant to you is how many items are in each block. If you want, for example, a 13-item quiz, you might choose hospital internship and physical exam, put a check mark by each of those, and then hit Add. When you hit Add down below, it will move those from the available blocks down to selected blocks. It says selected test, but it's the blocks that you have moved down there. Once you have all of them down there that you want, and if you, by the way, if you change your mind, you can just move it back up. So if you have all the blocks there that you want, hit Save. And then a screen is going to pop up that asks you to name your quiz, and maybe you'll put some description beside it. That's up to you. You can put a description there. I've seen some teachers use like the lesson number that this refers to, where this was found. And you will see that, the students won't see your description. They'll see your name, whatever you've named it, but they won't see the description. Okay, the next thing you've done, now you've got a quiz and you want to assign it to your students. If you hit the Assign Test tab, you can search and select from your quizzes by the name. Now these are the names of the quizzes that I selected, that I had created in the Sandbox account. So I have Demo 2, Demo All HBS Item Sets, Demo for Solution Center, Feedback. You can name them whatever you want to name them. You can name them the September 15th test, the October 21st test. You choose the name. Once you've done that and you want to assign that to a student, you click on the one that you want to assign, and you come down here to the bottom where it says Assign Test. You have two choices. You can either assign it to the whole roster, which is usually what a teacher does, or you may just want to offer some students a little extra practice time. Or maybe they didn't score well on it and you want to assign it to them again. You want them to try again and think a little harder about it, or look up the answers, because this is a quiz. If you make it open book, we're okay with that. Then you might select two specific students. So the whole roster or specific students for whichever quiz you've assigned. Next one, Brian. When they go into their kite screen, they're going to see the tabs and they pick the name of the quiz you tell them to pick. If they accidentally pick the EOC instead of one of your quizzes, because I know they would never do that on purpose, but if they did it accidentally, as long as they don't have the access code, it's not a problem. If you have given them the access code and they accidentally select the EOC, they'll take the EOC. That wouldn't be good, probably. So be careful, don't give the access code out until you're ready for them to take the EOC, the daily access code. But you can assign a quiz multiple times. You can assign a lot of quizzes at once. You might want to make 10 quizzes at the beginning of the school year, assign them all, and maybe it's something you'd use when you have a sub in for a day. You might have a sub tell the students to log into their Kite login, and there is a non-secure login that they can use from anywhere, any device. And so they could log into that and take the quiz. Once they've taken the quiz, they will see these results on screen. So what you're seeing here is a student that took HBS Unit 5. I don't even think there is a Unit 5, but there was at one time. And these are the questions that they had, the names of the questions. And this, again, they're seeing on screen, did you get it right? Did you get it partially right? Or did you get it wrong? So this is the score that the students will see on screen for each one of the Quizlets that you have assigned them. I don't think I have it in this presentation, and I'm sorry that I forgot to put this in, but one of the options you have is to include the rationale. So the student, as they're answering the quiz questions, puts in their answer, and then they get a pop-up screen that tells them, you got this right, congratulations, and they go on to the next one. Or, you got this wrong, and this is why this answer might be wrong. And then they can go back and try again. Now, obviously, if you're using this for a quiz grade in your grade book, you're not going to want them to go change the answers because they know what the answer is. So you would not show rationales. But when you assign the test, there'll be a little box at the bottom that allows you to assign the test. And when you do that, it will show rationales or not show rationales. That's the box you'll check. Okay, so this is what the student screen looks like. And then teachers have 3 different reports that they use quite a bit. Well, okay, one of them is way my favorite, but they're all available to you. They're there for different uses. So you'll look for the test summary report, the student report, or the item report. Now I can tell you that the test summary report is my very favorite, and I'll show you one of those. If you want to use an item report though, what the item report will give you is, this is what the right answer is, this is what this student answered, which one they selected, and whether they got it right or not. That's really valuable if you're trying to understand, if a lot of your class missed item 1 and you want to see on item 1, what answer were they picking instead? You can do that from the item report. If you're in the test summary report, I think this gives you usually what you'll want. It lists each of your students' first name and last name. It lists their student ID, and this is their 𝐞𝐲 ID, probably not your state ID, but it's their 𝐞𝐲 ID. And then for each question, did they get it right? Did they get it partially right? Or did they get it wrong? What percentage of it? So for example, if you look at student 10, which is row 3, and I'm going over to question I, they got 0.67 on that. So they didn't get it really right, but maybe they got like 3 out of 5 answers. That's not quite a third, but you get the idea. And then how many points did they get for that? And what was their percentage total? So this total, column O, is going to give you, if you just want to know what did the student score on this, that's your column you'll go to. You can move these columns around back and forth, left and right. You can also order them if you want to do that. And I think that's it. Denise, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks, Terry. All right, as we're wrapping up things up, reminder in terms of a checklist for administering the EOC. These are, I'm not going to read the slide here, but just some good things to keep in mind before testing, the day of the test, and then after the test, which are made available in the administration Terry mentions. Next slide, Terry. Right. And another quick reference guide from all what you've heard. Terry mentioned about how to administer the value and the importance of the IAT can also be found here, but you can also look at just as a handy guide for you all to know about how to administer the IAT, the benefits for it, and then walking through the students and their experiences prior to taking an EOC. And as we mentioned, it's incredibly valuable for the students to help and understand, to become familiar with the platform, familiar with the content, and also enabling teachers to see the progress of their students, identifying areas and how they're doing with the coursework. Next slide. And then just keep in mind, you all know, and especially administering a test that has stakes involved, and just some of the we want to keep mentioning about prohibited behavior, which is not uncommon to any testing environment, similar to other achievement and admission testing that you all implement in your district and schools, and some of the allowable items and also prohibited items that you see on the list, but also is indicated in the admin manual as well. Next slide. I think we may be done. I think we have some questions here. Yes, we have one more slide after this in terms of the next slide, please. About we're looking for, we also want to involve, for those of you that know, we have our advisory committee members. They are part of our, as Terry and Brian mentioned about our design of our blueprints, work with educators like you and others to convene and help do some of the items that you all will see, the students will see on the EOC items. So they go through a series of assessment experts as well as teachers to ensure that the content is aligned to the curriculum and is familiar and many other attributes. Also, we want to work and consistently to update our formative offerings, and that is why we're looking for a few teachers who have created some items would like to share with us some of those items or would like to help us construct those items for the IAT especially. And if anyone is interested in either participating in our advisory for EOC or assisting us with formative, please just shoot us an email and we'd love to talk to you about it. And this is a great opportunity for any of those who want to. I know everyone's might have been holding on to items that you guys have written or shared with amongst other teachers, and we'd love to work with you and collaborate with you on that initiative. And I think that might conclude our webinar. Terry,
We have just a couple
I
questions in
will,
the question
yeah.
and answers section.
Okay.
I thought we might go to those. These are
Okay.
some hard ones. I'm not even sure I know the answers. So Denise and Brian, if you want to join me, you can help me in these. The first one I see is from Gloria. Gloria says, I know that each section of the test is about 50 minutes long, but our periods are only 44 minutes long, with a few minutes before the test for students to log in and get ready. They may not have the full 55 minutes. Can the section be paused and then continued the next day? No. It's not that it couldn't technically happen, but that's a really, it's a dangerous way to administer a standardized test. The problem with that is that once the test has been opened, the student has access to see all of the items. So it would be feasible that they could look at the items, remember a couple of them that were just really hard, go home and talk to their mom, the engineer, or their dad, the doctor, about what would be the answer, how would I answer this, or go home and look it up, or go home and call all their friends and ask them what they should answer. And then when they come back the next day, they'd have access to go in and change those answers. And that wouldn't be good. So most students will finish in less than 55 minutes. You might ask your administrators about, or the next class. Frequently, this is a pretty high stakes test. I mean, kids get college credit for it. So usually the next teacher would be okay if they were a few minutes late. But you should not plan to close the test and come back the next day. It won't be available to them. Technically, we could do it. You could call a solution center and they could do it, but it would be bad testing practice. So don't do that. Denise, Brian, did I handle that okay? That was a hard one. Okay. If you mistakenly assign a test, can you delete it somehow? Allison, I think you're asking about the IATs, not the EOCs. And because I don't think you would accidentally assign an EOC, you'd have to like put up the daily access code and everything. I don't think that would happen accidentally. And if you assign an interim quiz, can you delete it? No. If anybody has answered the quiz, you can't delete it. And so you could assign it again. You could give it a different name and assign it again and tell them, take the quiz for May 7th instead of the one for May 6th. You could do that, but you can't delete it. Gloria asked also, if I have a student with an IEP or a 504, where do I make adjustments for them to get extra time and such? So Gloria, usually if it's extra time, you just allow extra time for them at the school. We don't time the test, you do. And so if they need extra time, adjust your schedule so they have extra time. The and such, what else would you need? If you need a paper form or a Braille form, request it 4 to 6 weeks ahead of time. We'll send you a form that you fill out and then we'll send you the form. There is a mechanism to go into the student profile and set what accommodation you're giving them, which you don't need to do if you're doing paper or Braille. We'll do that for you. And you don't need to do anything about allowing extra time. I think that addresses it. If I didn't get it all, Gloria, let me know afterwards and I'll try again on that one.
Yeah, and Terry, just wanted to add, like, and PLTW, we do support use of all accommodations that are aligned with students' documented plans. So just please be sure to check in with the testing coordinator or special education staff of time and just making sure that everything is set up properly and correctly prior to the start of the test.
Right. Kathy says, if all student attributes are set and the test date isn't, is that a possible reason why the students aren't assessment ready? Setting the test date or telling us what the test date is going to be is a convenience item. You don't need to do that to make the test ready. If they have filled out all of their student profile and you still don't see the check mark that says they're assessment ready, it's probably one of those sort of rare occurrences when we need to go kick the server. Obviously, we're not really kicking the server, but our Solution Center team can do a manual synchronization that will make those appear. So check it a few days early. If you don't have the check mark there that says the test is ready, that there's an authorization to test waiting for them, call the Solution Center and they'll help you. They'll take care of it. Anonymous attendee says, this is my first year. I don't know where the EOC is displayed in the KITE portal since I don't see it. Usually what happens is the student has an icon on their desktop that says KITE, and they'll click that and go in there. If you're giving a quiz, you'll see in the admin manual there's a place that they can click on that. You won't have access to the test, to the student version of the test. They will, and they should, I believe, get to it using the icon that's on their desktop that will take them to the KITE student portal. You probably have a test coordinator in your school or another teacher who's given it. I would check with them and they'll know what your district does and what it looks like on your student's desktop. And of course, if all else fails, call our friends at the Solution Center. Samantha Montoya. Thanks, Mr. Jones. Could you please share their contact info with me? I'm not sure who there is.
Oh, the Solution Center, I think. I don't have that on hand right quick, but it's in the admin manual, correct?
It is in the admin manual. Harold, I know you're on here. If you want to type it in, we'll give them that response. I can look it up too. If you want to take the next question, I will look it up online real quick and then I'll have it and I'll put it in the chat. Brian.
Okay. So if they go in to do the practice test, the IAT, and you're not seeing the EOC, then there are two things that I would just think of right away. One, make sure that they're in the secure browser, because if they're not in the secure browser, they won't see that there. Also, make sure that the students are assessment ready so that they can have those tests assigned to them. And yeah, those are the things that I would check. If you have all those things set up and you've gone through all of the setup things that are listed in the admin manual and it's still not working, then that's where I would reach out to the Solution Center, and they're a lot more equipped to look at your current situation and help you troubleshoot that.
And I see that Danielle put in the contact information for the Solution Center, solutioncenter@pltw.org. Phone number is 877-335-7589. And that's in the admin manual too. Samantha says, thanks so much.
Yeah. And Terry, do we address the mistakenly assigning a test from Allison? Or
if you mistakenly assign a test, can you delete it? The answer is no, you can't. You could assign it again and give it a different name and tell them to take the different one. You could ignore the results, but you can't delete it. Okay, I think we are at time. I don't see any more questions. If you do have a question, please don't hesitate to send it to us at pltwassessment@pltw.org. We will send out copies of this, and I'll put the recording information on the front page. Please feel free to share this with anybody in your school or outside your school. We want people to know this information, and we're available to help anytime. Don't forget to look at your admin manual. I know you'll sleep with it under your pillow because it's like wonderful, right? And thank you for giving us your time this afternoon. We appreciate it. And we hope you all have a great evening and a very successful administration of the EOC. Thanks, everybody. Take care.